Development, in my mind, is an ongoing process. And it really functions best with people. Because when you really come to think about it, development is for people and has to be practiced also by people. So learning, studying, making sure that what you study is functional or becomes functional is one of the things that Kwame Pianim is very passionate about.
One thing Kwame also believes is that natural resources have no natural owners. So you may have a lot of natural resources in your country. If you haven't developed the human ingenuity to develop those resources, then they may be in your own country, but they may not belong to you. And so Kwame believes in the human ingenuity.
You cannot do development or economics without thinking about the people. And anything for me, anything that has to do with moving with people, managing the people's future is politics.
Kwame believes that there will always be a role for the state as facilitator, as the one that makes sure that the playing field is level. But he also will be very firm that the bureaucracy cannot be trusted to do the functions of economic governance. Kwame never seemed to believe that. So he would look for market-based approaches to doing things.
For me, I think part of his continuous drive to keep people abreast of technology is about making sure that Ghanaians and young people, everybody, everywhere, mentally is able to function at a global level.
Development economics is very important to societies that want to constantly grow, evolve and make new advancements in both industry and technology. Understanding economics is important for countries in Africa if they want to move from developing or underdeveloped to developed nations. There is an African renowned development economist and financial consultant with diversified work experience in the international arena and in the public and private sectors of the Ghanaian economy.
I guess different people have to define who is Kwame Pianim. To me, I'm a citizen of Ghana, citizen of ECOWAS, citizen of Africa, and a global citizen. And what I do on a day-to-day basis, I'm a development economist.
As an economist, his philosophy is multidimensional, but a consistent theme has been the essential incompatibility between the economic agenda of poor nations, or what ought to be their economic agenda, and the priorities of the Bretton Woods system. Kwame Pianim holds a BA Honours in Economic and Political Science from the University of New Brunswick, Canada, in 1963, and an MA in Economics from Yale University, USA in 1964.
I was born in Kumasi and brought to the village to stay with my grandmother when I was about maybe 3 years old. And when I attained the age of going to school, my grandmother just took me to the Methodist school that was there. So in the village in Achinekum, that's where I started school. When I got about 13, there was a latte teacher in Achinekum, Labi, and he decided that I should go and sit for the common entrance because he thought I was smart. So he took me to Kumasi to sit for the common entrance, and I ended up in Achimode school where I did my O-levels and A-levels. And I actually went to Canada on a University of Ghana scholarship to learn history, to come and lecture as a history professor at the University of Ghana.
After our high school certificate, we were both candidates for scholarship awards, Commonwealth Scholarship Award. And so we met in the waiting room, 2 from Achimota School and 2 from Franspin School. There were others, but we recalled our 2 schools because we were also rival institutions. And that's where we met. And I got the scholarship to go to United Kingdom, and he got to go to Canada.
And when I got to Canada, I didn't like the history of fishing. So I turned and did philosophy, politics, economics, and I ended up with a double honors degree in economics. Then I got a scholarship to go to Yale University, where I did economics again. So I forgot about coming back to teach at the University of Ghana, far away from history, and my passion then became development economist. That's when I started working, and I started my work life working for the UN, my first job.
So I didn't see Kwame until much later when he had a stint at the UN system, which was actually good because he was able to combine the academic work in Canada with the working experience in the UN.
I was interested in the UN because they then had a passion for economic development. That was when the Brazilians were very keen to change the world economic order and the structures. Samir Amin was very strong at IDEP, where you remember his book, L'Afrique est mal partie, which is false start for Africa. That is, we started on the wrong footing and we needed to get on the right footing. And the economic development was then very key. If you were a young man, you wanted to be part of economic development.
When he came back during the time of the Second Republic to virtually head the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, and it was natural that we came together to work particularly on the Honorable J.H. Benson at the time. And the other coincidence was that my now late wife went to Achimota School and was very fond of Kwame as a prefect. So she was very happy to relink with her prefect. So we had that as well, and then our two wives got to know each other very well. So we also became like family friends.
I met my wife in Canada. She's Dutch, Cornelia Den Hartog.
I've worked with him for at least 8 years, closely 8 years. And his vision really is to see Ghana become socio-economically developed. And that is really what drives him.
My vision is to see an economically integrated Africa, and Africa holding its own in the world. An Africa that is economically independent and contributing its culture to the world. Everybody being there for the community, not what we have been taught, capitalism, socialism, this and that, but the African culture of each being each other's keeper.
One of the things I can say for him is that he really believes in the value of people. So he's a people's person. He is also very truthful. I mean, his integrity is something that you can always hold him to. He's also very hardworking and believes in the possibilities of making a difference. So I would even call him a very proactive kind of person.
We worked together in a slightly more formal sense under J.H. Benson during the Second Republic, when he had been brought home and was the acting principal secretary in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning.
The Social Security Fund was a small body that was being managed by the State Insurance Corporation, now SIC. Mr. Adibo was the guy who was in charge of it. And Mr. J.H. Mensah, who was then the Minister for Finance, whom I had known because I had been doing some work on East African Economic Cooperation when I was at the UN in Addis Ababa, and he was then an economist with the Economic Commission for Africa. He invited me actually to come to Ghana to work with him when he became Minister for Finance. So I came on a leave of absence from the UN to work with him. And he put me in charge of the committee that was set up to explore how we can expand the fund into a full-blown insurance trust. It was interesting because one of the trade union, the Secretary General of the trade union, whom we were working with, A.M. Isifu, insisted that the fund we're setting up should be an insurance scheme for workers, it should be a trust, it should be a welfare, social security. So my task was trying to come up with a name that reflected all the concerns and aspirations of the trade unions. So I remember about, where the Omari bookshop used to be, Labone, that was my house. Sitting there about 3 a.m. And then I thought maybe I found a name, SSNIT, Social Security and National Insurance Trust. And of course, the next morning at 8 a.m. when we went to the meeting, Mr. Isifu was very appreciative. He accepted it. And so to me, that was quite a significant contribution in terms of, if you look at Ghana now, what it has become. SNET is now the biggest investment fund that we have, pioneering a whole lot of things and leading. So I think that I had the opportunity given to me by J.H. Mensah to have been part of the establishment of SNET. I think that a lot of African countries have come up with the equivalent of that, and a lot of former Director Generals have helped countries like Sierra Leone, Gambia, and others to set up similar institutions.
He, for a number of years, was the Chief Executive of Cocoa Board, very successfully so. And I think his training as an economist, being in charge of what at that time was probably one of very few Ghanaian commodities that was traded internationally, you needed an understanding of international economics and those dynamics, which I think he was able to bring to bear very successfully.
Cocoa Marketing Board, I was there as Chief Executive at very tumultuous times, when the first AFRC coup, I was there, I was Chief Executive there. What I tried to do was to bring discipline into the financial services. So the first financial regulations, I tried to put it in place so that people knew what the rules were, so that when they are breaking the rules, they know that they are rules.
He was the first person to tell me that cocoa farmers, in defense of their assets, were chopping down the cocoa trees and planting maize because they could get a better return on the maize than if they grew the cocoa.
I tried to make sure that people realize that we were there to serve the cocoa farmers, not sit in air-conditioned rooms and misuse the funds that cocoa farmers generate by getting up early in the morning and going by walking to their cocoa farms and producing the crop for us, So mainly to become attuned to the needs of the cocoa farmers and also practice financial discipline at Cocoa Board.
I know Kwame Pianim has been very passionate about ensuring that people understand the use of money, not only for the now, but also for the future.
At that time, when we started New World, the data bank was well established, so all the business was going to data bank. And we realized that we needed our own fund if we are to play on the stock exchange, if we are to be an investment banking unit. And then we looked around. And I remember that my mother and friends who were trading in textile, what they did to create money where there was no money was that at the end of the month, they formed what was a type of susu. At the end of the month, each one of them will put £2 down. There were 10 of them, so that generated £20, which was given to one of them. So that person then got about £20, which they were able to deposit with JB Oliver, with UAC, those type of companies who then made them wholesalers so they could buy at wholesale and retail. And by doing that, they funded everybody.
The Ghana National Association of Teachers had decided sometime in 1997, under the previous General Secretary, Mr. Paul Osemensa, that there had to be a way of us satisfying our members' needs for financial sustenance.
Mr. Kwame Pianim played a role when he was chief executive of New World, because New World was an advisor to the teachers group. New
World Securities, as we are now called, we used to be New World Renaissance because we sold 70% of the stake to Renaissance of Russia. We didn't like the way they were managing the company, and the chief executive had a very difficult pregnancy, and I thought they were not treating her well. To me, pregnancy is precious. It's not a disease. I'm a man. My pain level is very, very low. If people were dependent upon me for children to be brought into this world, the human race will die out. So I'm very particular that we treat women in pregnancy very, very well. So I decided we should part company, and we parted company. So we are now New World Securities.
The background to the Teachers Fund was, I think, they saw, obviously with the advice of New World and working with New World, they saw an opportunity for a group of hard-working Ghanaians to somehow pool their resources over a period of time for their own benefit, to plan for their retirement, to be able to invest in their retirement, their current well-being, but more important, their future well-being.
We're looking around and say, look, if you take a look at the teachers, there are 350,000 of them. Each one of them in the olden days, you go to the village, the teachers were supposed to be the leaders, the moral leaders, the enlightenment, leaders of enlightenment there. But because they are badly paid, they were the poorest. And then they will borrow from the village loan shark. And then, of course, they start running away from the loan shark when it comes to payment.
It was reported in the media that NAT wanted to set up an investment fund, a bigger loan fund, credit union. But of course, we didn't know what actual design, how to fit it. So I think Mr. Pianim read about it, and he approached us with a design that for this thing that you want to do, let us call it, design it as a mutual fund. A mutual fund where everybody contributes into a big investment pool. And of course, the sustenance of that fund depends on the volume, the size of the fund.
We decided, why can't we try and restore the pride of the teacher? And if they are 350,000, each one of them were to put aside 1 cedi every month. That's 350,000. Of course, they are now doing 100 cedis, 50 cedis, and so forth. So that's what we did. And at the end of the month, we're collecting maybe 350,000. And of course, at the end of the year, to about 3.6 million. And then they increased it until now the Teachers Fund has assets of almost about $100 million. They own properties. If you take IBM here, Airtel are all tenants at Teachers Height, which belongs to the Teachers Fund. The first people we approached were the nurses. And they said no, So we went to the teachers, and it was a success story. But it was taking what was basically an African way of mobilizing funds, modernizing it, and scaling it up to make it into the Teachers Fund. One of the things we've been trying to do was to try to get the African Trade Union Congress to try to replicate the same thing. Can you imagine they have almost about, the workers in Africa, about 80 million if you take Nigeria, everybody together. If each one was contributing the equivalent of even $1, that's 80 million a month. And imagine if this was invested in some of the natural resources, like the petroleum industry, like the gold mining industry. The workers in Africa will help Africa become significant stakeholders in the development and exploitation of our own natural resources. Bayport Financial Services, a macro credit institution with investors from South Africa, and we began it with a teachers fund also as a shareholder originally before they sold out, and the Mine Workers Union is still a shareholder in Bayport Financial Services. So it was meant as a workers focused and related financial institution.
Mr. Pianim was the principal promoter of this company way back in 2002. He pioneered the operations of this company, and no wonder that he was made the chairman of the company, and he has remained the chairman up till today.
Banking in Ghana used to be an armchair type of activity, not customer-centered, not service-oriented. And I had the opportunity of bringing in some of the Nigerian banks, the top 4 Nigerian banks that came in here, United Bank for Africa, Zenith Bank, GT Bank, these are all banks that were among the top in Nigeria.
Mr. Pianim has been influential in many of the banking laws and regulations in the past that have been promulgated and passed.
It took us 5 years to get UBA to be licensed to come to Ghana. And we never looked back, because the ICT infrastructure that UBA brought into Ghana was by far superior to what existed in Nigeria. And when these boys came here, it was amazing, they worked almost from 7 to 10 p.m. And then the customer became king, the managing director was going to businessmen to their factories to talk to them. This was not heard of in Ghana before.
And in that process, what I experienced from working with Mr. Pianim was a real desire to see large groups of Ghanaians access economic opportunities for their current and future well-being, and also be an active participant in international business.
And then the ICT also made it possible for us to now be able to transfer money. Now we have these smart alerts. Immediately somebody is cashing money from your account, you get an alert, on an SMS alert. I could sit here the past 2-3 years and be able to use my phone to transfer money to my mother 250 kilometers away from here. You just get the pin, she goes to a bank and collects the money, instead of giving it to somebody who says the money got lost in the car or somewhere like that, and it takes a matter of minutes.
He's one of the very few 70-plus-year-olds who shows up in a meeting and opens his iPad.
You cannot develop without innovation. There's a famous economist called Schumpeter, and he was the one who came out with the idea that you need a constant stream of innovation to keep economies moving.
He's very current. He's always abreast with technology. He's always pushing people he works with to upgrade technology.
The banking system has become very, very competitive, and it become highly, highly innovative, and also based very strongly on ICT. And for that, I think that I'm proud that, we got the Nigerians to be able to take interest in Ghana, not to be frustrated and come here. The interesting thing is that this was the beginning of the Nigerian banks reaching out to develop Pan-African institutions. So UBA now has almost 18 branches. Mozambique, we are in Tanzania, we are in Kenya, we are in Cote d'Ivoire, we are in Burkina. So this provides the financial grease that will oil economic integration along West Africa and also in Africa. So I'm very pleased that I was able to be part of this.
It's about his vision and what he believes in, and people seek him out for that.
before the Nigerian banks started flexing their muscles, the only Pan-African institutions were maybe EcoBank, ETI, which was trying to develop a Pan-African presence. But even EcoBank was ECOWAS, basically a bank for ECOWAS. Now they become Pan-African. The South African banks, especially Standard Bank, which goes by the trademark of Stanbic, is also spreading its wings. And these banks make sure that the capital in Africa remains in Africa to develop the resources of Africa and to create employment for citizens of Africa. And hopefully one of them, maybe a Nigerian bank, a Ghanaian bank, may become a global bank and be able to operate in China elsewhere. If you take UBA, UBA, of which I'm chairman of UBA Ghana, has a presence in New York, they are in Paris, they are in London, they are in China, So the beginnings of global banking is already appearing among the African banks.
He's been chairman of, for example, PURC, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. You need to understand economics to make that work properly.
Many people who are not necessarily politicians, some ordinary Ghanaians know the name Kwame Pianim.
Kwame is a person with very strong convictions. He's intolerant of anything that looks like the capture of the rights of individuals. He likes to encourage thinking, and he's somebody that is willing to pay the price, whatever it is, for the right to have his convictions. And sometimes he's paid very dearly for this.
Politics sent him to jail, as you know.
I'm politically active because I think it's naive for any Ghanaian to say, I'm not interested in politics. Politics determine whether you get a job or not, whether your children will go to school or not, or whether you go to school, whether you get employment, whether the priorities of the nation are right.
He was in prison for 10 years. When he came out from prison, and he attempted to be a president of Ghana and ran on the ticket of the National Patriotic Party in 1996. Somebody took him to court, to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court argued that because he had committed a treasonous act, he is not fit to run for the office of the president.
So I encourage everybody to be politically active. It doesn't mean that you have to be a full soldier and be following politicians all the time. It means that you have to be alert, you have to contribute. You don't join the serial callers who are insulting everybody and therefore driving good people away from politics. But you have to become engaged. You have to participate in public policy in a civil manner by contributing what your perspectives are.
He believes that political parties should come together, find a common ground to ensure the safety and stability of the nation Ghana before we can afford the luxury of thinking about political ideas. So the stability of Ghana is foremost on his mind.
We need to get the right political environment. The policy framework has to be right. And we should lower the exaggerated entitlement mentality. We believe that the government owes us a living. Nobody owes us a living. That donor countries owe us a living. They don't owe us a living. 50 years have passed since we became politically independent. We cannot continue to blame the colonialists for our mistakes. Now we should take charge of our own responsibilities, of our destiny.
Kwame has been willing, if necessary, to go into private enterprise and do a good job there. Kwame has been willing to be known to be a member of the Progress Party, or now the NPP, and not feel that therefore the door is shut to NDC. I'm sure that he has lots of friends in the NDC and the other parties as well.
I believe in the market, and therefore I'm a member of the NPP because we believe in freedom in development, which means that we are prepared to sacrifice some development to ensure that the individual has freedom.
When it gets to our attitude to life and the prosperity of this, we are very we are both very, very deeply convinced Ghanaians that whilst we see Africa, we don't think that it is appropriate to make Ghana subservient to, and that Ghana has paid too big a price for Africa as a whole. So we would like to see Ghana sometimes help Africa by being successful.
The Chinese come. They've been elected by the Chinese with a mandate for the welfare of the Chinese. The Americans come the same, the British come the same, the French come the same. Our leaders are elected by us to protect our interest. One of the things that gives me nightmares are the young people on the streets in our towns, and it's repeated all over Africa. The young people can become the resources that man the development of our nations, or they will be the people that undermine our political stability, because they become then people in the streets causing commotion and tension for us. But we need to educate them so that they become trainable, so that they can then become the people who then force, are in charge of economic development. So youth employment is what every country should be aiming for.
I'm the chairperson of the Finatrade Foundation. The foundation is the corporate social responsibility wing of the Finatrade group of companies. And the Finatrade group of companies is really made up of various companies dealing mainly with agro business. That is, the things they sell, the things they produce, the things they manufacture are all agro-based. And so the foundation has been set up to ensure that each of the companies makes a contribution which will be used in promoting the development of agriculture, starting at the universities.
The credit should go to Nabil Mukassel, who is the chief executive of the Finatrade group of companies. He came to us, Kwame Kwanza, myself, Joyce Ayi, whom we put on the board, and said, look, and I'm Kalenzi, who joined us later, and said, what can we do to improve agriculture?
The Finatrade Group believes firmly that the future of Ghana rests with the way we manage agriculture at all its levels. Its study, its practice.
How can you say you're an agriculturist when you finished, you have a degree in agriculture? You don't even know how to drive a tractor. You haven't used a planter before. You haven't used a harvester before. So we said, okay, and you might not even have tried to grow anything before. So we said, okay, let's rehabilitate your farms, the university farms, so that we can get some of the students actually dirtying their hands and doing some agriculture.
And when we were called to serve, we were asked to also help shape their thinking, because they were interested in promoting studies in agriculture, helping people with ICT, touching other people's lives through what we call the humanitarian service, We
want also to get young women. So they focus on young women, brilliant but needy, who will have gained admission into Legon or any of our universities and couldn't be able to pay.
To develop, we have to ensure the education of young people. And it's no wonder that Kwame is chairman of the board of a very important international school in Ghana, that is the Ghana International School, that ensures that people are well trained.
The good thing about Ghanaians is that they love to be at home. So if we create the right environment, they will come. But none of them, even if they want to come, their spouses are not going to follow them. If they come and they put their hand on the wall, no electricity. They turn the tap, there's no water. They are used to water flowing, electricity flowing. So we have to make sure that the basic amenities are there. We have to make sure that the schools are there for their children to go to. And that's one of the things I learned, and the thing I do at Ghana International School, that we provided what is called soft landing for some of these people when they are coming.
So in all the things that he does, he thinks about education for the youth, economic prosperity, and the well-being of Ghanaians.
It's my hope that as I talk to people, as you talk at lectures, people at least will listen and they may take some ideas from it. But I'm very confident about the mindset. Ghana, we have almost about 4 million Ghanaians outside in the diaspora. About 400,000 of them are professionals and technicians. So if the economic development starts to accelerate, there's no need for us to have a labor shortage. These people will come back. If the economy had not slowed down in 2008, the economic disaster crisis in Europe and America would have been a gift to us. My passion is helping and seeing things grow, whether it be institutions, individuals, or countries.
The most important characteristic of every project we've worked on is, or two most important characteristics. One, they're usually about really creating a platform for a lot of people to benefit. And two, they're usually about finding a win-win for everybody.
I'm always pleased when I hear Spinters Road. The Millet brothers, you remember Millet Textiles, they were trying to do integration of the textile industry, getting from ginning to spinning and then to weaving it. They were making the uniforms for the police and some for the soldiers. So they came to me. I did a feasibility study for them. I arranged for the supplier's credit. And then we set up Spintex. And Spintex, we couldn't find a place in the Accra industrial area. So they looked for a place around the Tema motorway. And that time, there was just a small road there. And now it is Spintex Road because we put Spintex there. But when I hear Spintex Road, I'm encouraged. When I'm driving past on Independence Avenue and I see Nat Height, Teachers Fund there, I'm pleased, when I'm driving past and I see a place like Novotel, I'm pleased, that's one of the projects I did together with Mr. Kofi Annan, who was the managing editor of the Tourist Development Company. We got the French group to join us to build a hotel. And that's the hotel that came out of it, So the diplomatic shops was also one of the joint things that I did with Kofi Annan. I was chairman of the board. He was managing director of the company. So it's encouraging and uplifting when you see things that we've been part of grow and become established. If we can get a few Ghanaians who've been working in the Middle East and in North America and then in the North Sea to come home, what we need is a policy by a government that maybe we have a leasing company or a finance company that will lease rigs for these boys. Once they have the company, they get the contracts from Jubilee Field, from Tallow, from Cosmos, from all the companies that are here. They'll be paid direct. And this is the way that you get the industry not becoming an enclave activity like gold became, but becoming really integrated into the Ghanaian economy. And all over Africa, Africa is known for natural resources. We've been doing well in the past 10 years because China and India were developing, they were raw material intensive, and we should take advantage of that, not only collect the monies, but make sure that the resources benefit and are used as a leverage for developing local entrepreneurship and getting local businessmen to do well,
Sometimes I think that we allow ourselves to be cheated. And I think the better way to see our attitude to Africa is our commitment to find an African success story. That is what will give pride to Africa, because sometimes people behave like Africa is full of failed states. So I don't know, I can't gauge about thinking about Africa. So we've all attended a lot of these big time conferences for Africa, but But if I start from myself, I think that Kwame's contributions to developing economics in Africa should be seen by what he's trying to do at home.
My voice will always be heard. I'll be there on the side of those who are speaking the truth, whether it hurts or not. My voice will be there. Look, they say there are only 3 people who can speak the truth: the insane, the very rich, and then those who don't care. I don't know where I'm not rich, I'm not insane, but my voice will always be heard, and I'll be at the side of the voiceless, the marginalized, because we need to move Ghana through shared growth and inclusive development. That's what we need all over Africa. Africa is made up of tribes. The only way any African country can move is through moving together. The only way all the nations in Africa can move is moving together. So we are condemned to demonstrate to the world that there is unity in diversity.